Hello! In this video, I want to review Gladiator 2. I was quite surprised when I realized that this movie actually receives a lot of hate online. Many movie critics, for example such as the Critical Drinker, seem to be convinced that this movie is simply a cash grab, and many simply think that Gladiator 2 wasn't needed, really. And I would agree that the sequel wasn't needed, but that doesn't make this a bad movie. Let me explain what I mean by that. So the thing is, this movie could have worked perfectly well even if there were no connections essentially with the first part. Now, one of the characters, I don't want to spoil it to you, is related to Maximus, so that's an important plot point, but the movie, when you think about it, could have really worked even without it. So even without that plot point, the movie works perfectly fine. And there are many important differences when you compare Gladiator 1 with Gladiator 2. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but for example, Gladiator 1 does not have a Denzel Washington or Macrinus like character that's manipulating all the players. He's kind of like the Roman version of Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. And Macrinus, actually, interestingly, he was a real figure. He was an African emperor, probably black, we are not sure. But yeah, the Gladiator 1 did not have such a figure. Gladiator 1 also did not have a captured member of the, let's say, that belongs to the barbarians, or Romans basically perceived all non-Romans as barbarians. So we did not have this interesting premise, and that is looking at Rome from the perspective of a barbarian that was captured in battle. And also, like, there are important differences. So it's not like this is just a copycat of the first movie. I also disagree with that criticism. And also there is a difference when directors borrow from their own movies and when like people steal from other movies. I think that Ridley Scott is entitled to like imitate his own movies, essentially. I mean, Howard Hawks, one of the greatest directors, is also famous for doing that. Like, not many attack him for doing that. Yeah, but okay, I also don't agree with criticism expressed by people such as Metatron. By the way, I actually like Metatron's channel. I agree with many things. But the thing is, so Metatron, he's one of those guys, and by the way, I have a friend like that when something is historically inaccurate, that ruins the movie for them. So for Metatron, everything needs to be historically accurate. Now, I also like history. I studied history, read a lot about history, but the thing is, to me, I ask one question, essentially, and that is, does the movie capture the spirit of the time? And I think this movie does capture the spirit of the time. But okay, as Metatron and many other commentators already explained, this movie merges multiple political figures into new figures. For example, Caracalla in this movie, well, he's not like the Caracalla as described by the Roman sources. He's more like an Elagabal like figure. Elagabal was this crazy Roman emperor that, if we are to believe Tacitus, he dressed up as a woman. Some even say that he was the first like transgender emperor of Rome, and he also had some like weird fetishes. He was like bisexual also. He's often used by people of today to like he became a symbol of Roman decadence, essentially. So Elagabal was a crazy emperor. He got killed very quickly by the Praetorian Guard and thrown into the river Tiber. But yeah, Caracalla in this movie is essentially something like Elagabal. Okay, Geta is essentially the Roman Emperor Geta, but they like did not rule as brothers. That's also not what happened. And okay, Macrinus, yeah, is not really. Denzel Washington is in many aspects different from the historical Macrinus, but none of that's important, because to me what's important is, does the movie capture the spirit of the era? And I think this movie is very good at presenting us with the chaotic 3rd century Rome. So 3rd century is where when Rome really started to decline. We have all this not just like sexual promiscuity and stuff like that, but also a lot of political instability. For example, Roberto Lopez argues in one of his books, where he compares medieval history with Rome, that Rome was actually a very unstable society because the Roman emperors did not have a stable mechanism of succession, and that led to multiple institutions fighting each other for power, like the Senate, the military, the Praetorian Guard, and the emperors. And this movie really captures that chaos very well. So that's what I like about the movie. So let me give you an example of how I judge historical accuracy in movies. Not everything needs to be accurate. I realize that movies are fiction. Movies also need to be fun. Movies are not here to present us like perfectly with every detail. Like some movies try to do that, but Ridley Scott never claimed he wants to do that. Like Mel Gibson, for example, likes to do it. That's why he makes his actors even learn ancient languages, which is super cool, and I support that, but not every movie needs to be like that. Like, the dumbest criticism I heard of this movie is that Denzel Washington has an American accent, and that therefore that's somehow bad. Well, if they are not speaking Latin, then what the hell is the difference? Like, they're speaking English anyway. But yeah, so just to give you an example, if you are making a movie about the Battle of Stalingrad, I would be pissed if you film that movie in the Sahara Desert. That ruins the atmosphere of the movie. But if you film it in some like Siberian town, I will probably not know the difference between that and Stalingrad today. So yeah, not everything needs to be 100% historically accurate. In this movie, not only was it fun to watch, really I enjoyed all the crazy scenes with monkeys attacking people and sharks, although I do realize that transporting sharks into the gladiatorial arena was extremely difficult, because sharks can only breathe if they move. But in theory, they could have built, I guess, huge like barrels or something and put them inside. It's not logically impossible. And okay, my main argument in defense of this movie is that this movie is obviously a metaphor for the United States. All the time they speak about the Roman dream, and this saying really did not exist in ancient Rome. And obviously they are talking about the American dream being dead, and they're asking the question, can it be restored? And yeah, that's what I like about this movie. I like movies that ask big questions, and movies that really believe in themselves. And this movie is that. You have to admit that, even if you don't like every detail about it. Okay, if you like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more videos like this one.